everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Reclaim podcast. No one is coming to save you. Please remember to like and subscribe because that's the only way we get to keep doing this.
And we really want to keep doing this.
We really want to keep doing this.
We love this so much.
We love it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about grief.
We are.
And I think you and I have already said we're both feeling super emotional today already.
So crazy today.
Because we record on full moons
We
only.
do. You guys, we do.
We didn't even mean to do that.
Not even planned.
But the grief that comes with, changing your life. Somebody wrote a comment on my Instagram that said, this is the loneliest they've ever felt while they are in this process of taking back their life.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling
Yeah.
so much. That is going to be the biggest challenge when you make this massive shift in your world to go after your most authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Because the relationships that you had that no longer fit the narrative, those fall off.
They sure do.
You realize how many relationships were based off of either toxic behavior that you had or unhealed versions of yourself that attracted certain people. And it's not just like boyfriend, girlfriend relationships.
Oh, no.
It's friendships. It's family
relatives.
members.
That's right.
Relatives. Relatives, I think, is the biggest one and the hardest one because I grew up in a household where no matter what, you're family and you stick together no matter what.
Yeah.
And that can be toxic.
Yeah. Funny enough, my family was the first to go for me.
Interesting.
And not easily. I have a very small family. I'm an only child. But I could see the patterns that were continuing, like with what my parents had created because they didn't heal their stuff. And I had to isolate. I had to separate myself. And interestingly, within the last couple of years, I've reconnected with family. And it's a very different bond now because I'm different, because I did the work and reclaimed, and now I'm able to show up differently. And I don't interpret things the same way, and I don't show up the same way for them. So, sometimes that can happen. Not every time. Listen, if your family is really toxic, you got to protect yourself. Sometimes it can be good, though, after.
Do you think that taking that time away allowed you to reestablish yourself so that when you came back to those relationships, you could be confident in who you were and not influenced anymore by the opinions of our families? They've got really, really big expectations on how we should live our life because they have a vision for us.
Yes.
And they have a narrative that they want in.
And I think, too, sometimes, when you have a loving family, which I do, it doesn't mean that there isn't some toxicity that's present. They do want what's best for you. And I think when they see you go through certain struggles, they're so protective and loving at times that they want what they think you should do. Mm-hmm. It definitely took me taking that step back and figuring it out on my own before I could come back to them. And now they're just like, I can't believe all the things you've done. And which brings up another, and I'm curious how you feel about this, tricky point where I did so much on my own. Like once you get into isolation and you grow on your own, then finding your way either back or into new relationships can feel really hard.
It can. And I think there's also this fear of, I don't want to lose people again. I don't want to bring in these people into my life who are these new connections just to figure out that, once again, these are not people that are going to be the right fit for my life now. And so it's made me more hesitant, and I've set a lot more boundaries. My therapist is so proud. But I have a lot more boundaries with how much I share of myself. I am an oversharer all day, and I believe in being open and sharing, but there's some information that, as my therapist says, not everybody is entitled to know everything about you right away. And there's a sense of, even in these friendships, especially female friendships, back in June or July of last year, when I took a step back from dating, because I was making horrible, horrendous choices in my dating life, I made a commitment to start putting myself in scenarios where I could build fierce female friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had that as a filter. I've had female friendships my whole life, but I lost a couple of really close friends back when I got divorced. They fell off for various reasons, and I've had to do my mourning over those relationships. These are people I've known more than half my life. And once again, I thought because we have these long standing connections, we're supposed to stick it out. We're supposed to be friends forever. And that is just not the case. Sometimes you grow differently and you grow apart, and some things are just not meant to be forever. And then you wonder about, what were we really connected by in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
I did not realize how many of my relationships relied on alcohol to be the driving factor of the friendship, the romantic relationship, even in my family life. Sometimes it was the only way I felt like I could connect with people.
Yes.
Um, and once I took alcohol out of the equation, I realized that I had really heavily depended on that to drive my relationships and to bring me together and to make me feel connected with people. So it's been a different world understanding who I am without alcohol and
Yeah.
what kind of friendship, um, what does friendship look like without alcohol? And it's been a big change. So it's been interesting though. And I'm finding the relationships I'm building now are so much more aligned with my path and where
Mm-hmm.
I'm heading. And
Yes.
but there was a time, there was a period of probably a year where I felt really, really alone. And there's still days where you can have all the friends in the world and all the people in the world who love you, and it
Yeah.
doesn't stop from sometimes feeling lonely, because when your journey is this personal and you're digging this deep into yourself, you have to do it by yourself. If you start
Yes.
seeking validation from everyone else, you're never going to figure out who you are.
That's spot freaking on. Do you think part of, like, in that isolation period, was part of it for you also mourning like your old identity? Because it's
Yeah.
not just the people, it's the you that you're losing.
Guys, I'm getting emotional. Yeah. I think the biggest mourning and grief was coming from the life that I had envisioned as a married mom.
Yep.
I grew up in a household with two parents who loved each other very much, but they had a very toxic marriage, and it should have ended a long time ago. And so I grew up with this idea that you stick it out no matter what. And so I felt like a failure for a long time that I didn't stick it out. And then I had to really accept that this life I had envisioned of growing up in this household with a husband and a wife and a dog and a kid, family vacations, all of these beautiful things that I had built in my head, that was not going to be the reality, but it was never going to be the reality. That relationship,
Even if you had stayed?
even if I had stayed, that
Yeah.
was never going to be the reality, because that wasn't the relationship we had. We had our own demons that we could not get through together.
Yeah.
And it was never the fairy tale, but I kept making it a fairy tale.
Oh, we push it into a box, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember when people found out that I had left my husband, because I really silently left. There was no big announcement on social media. There was just like 6 months later, I pop up in a new condo with, hi,
That's always how
I'm
I've done
here.
it. Like, yeah. Brand new.
Hello everybody, welcome to my new life. I remember one of my girlfriends messaged me and was like, hey, so I've been trying to decode your Instagram for months now, and I'm just gonna ask, are you divorced? I was like, in the process.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
But when it started to finally come out that I had separated and I was living this new life, the most common response I got was, but you looked so happy on Instagram. And then they would stop and say, oh, you looked so happy on Instagram. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was a curated, and it wasn't a lie. I was trying to make it believable for myself
Oh, yes.
that this was this beautiful journey we were on, and
Yes.
all these struggles we had was just going to make us stronger.
And there's
And
grief with that. Like not
yes,
like there's the people, there's the circumstances, there's the identity, and then there's all the fucking effort you put in to curating this life, to trying to hold it all together.
mhm,
There's so much grief.
so much. So you grieve the person you once were, because even in a bigger way, I think you almost grieve the person that person could have been had you discovered all of this sooner, right? I think there's something to
Oh,
be said about feeling guilty that you didn't make these moves sooner. Why didn't I?
yes.
Why didn't I? And
Yep.
I am able to curb that with the idea of any different move I made in the last 37 years would have not led me to my daughter.
That's yes.
And
Yes.
so I have zero regrets because I got her.
Yes.
But if I didn't have her, I think I would have struggled a lot harder with why didn't I make these changes sooner? Because I felt lost for years, just years and years and years of not knowing who I was. I was thinking about this earlier today, that I used to just sit on, when my ex-husband and I, our first apartment, and on my days off, I would just sit on the couch for hours and hours and hours and just like binge watch TV and eat snacks. And I just thought to myself, I thought life was supposed to be more than this, but I guess not. I guess this is it. And I had this acceptance that this was it. But I thought, well, at least you have a boyfriend, right? At least you have a house. At least you have a dog. That
Oh,
at least you have kept me in this very safe zone, because I had the check boxes of the things that made me acceptable to society as a woman, right? Like, this is the thing that you're supposed to do. And so it wasn't until I came out of all of that and just thought, wow, like the last 10 or 15 years I have just wasted. But I didn't waste them.
no.
I didn't.
But it can feel like
It can
it.
feel like that, though. It can. And so I'm very grateful that I'm here now and that I've gotten to this point. But you will cry and cry and cry and feel alone, and you will feel like you waited too long or it's too late, and it's never too late. My mom's going to be 70 this year, and she keeps saying she's acting like she's going to die tomorrow. And I'm like, Mom, you could still have another 20 to 30
That's
years.
right.
It's
That's
still
right.
not too late for you. And you see people all the time at every age, they make these drastic life changes.
If they're ready to.
Yeah.
It's you reminded me so much of it's been you and I are at like different points in our journey somewhat.
Hmm.
Um, my divorces were much longer ago, and the first time I had to reclaim myself was a hot minute ago, but you were reminding me I in my first and second marriages I had that same feeling like this is it.
This is it.
Really? This can't be it. But you're so, you think like you said, you're doing I checked all the boxes, I did all the things, and I guess I should be happy.
I should be grateful.
Grateful.
I should
That's
be
the one.
grateful.
So grateful that right. Which is that's so toxic. Like if you're really not truly like I'll say all the time, don't make a gratitude list because that's like the rage, right? To get your head right and your heart right. And yeah, it's good, but so often it's bullshit. Like fake grateful is not helpful at all.
I have Autumn make gratitude, like do gratitude.
Yeah,
And she's 3. And I never shame her for what she's grateful for,
that's
right?
right.
Like,
That's right.
I'm grateful for my toys. Good. You are grateful for your toys,
Yep.
right? Why do we have those toys? Because we work hard, and we're grateful that mommy has a job and that mommy, can go out and work. And
Right.
so I think there's two sides of gratitude, right? There's the guilty gratitude of I'm supposed to be grateful because
Yep.
somebody loved me. I'm supposed to be grateful because I have all of these wonderful things. And then there's the internal gratitude that we have to pull out. And I've done this exercise with people before when they're coming to me and they're giving me like all of the awful, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things that are happening.
Yeah.
And I'll ask them, give me 3 things that you're grateful for. And they struggle to find 3 things.
Yeah.
And if you pull it out of them and you really make them think about, I'm grateful to be alive today. I'm
Yeah.
grateful to have both my legs working today. I'm grateful to be able to run on the treadmill today when others can't. That kind of gratitude is the gratitude we forget about. We're focused on, I'm grateful that I've got my big screen TV, or I'm grateful that I've got this
It can go that
vacation.
way, yeah.
So I think gratitude can become toxic if you don't understand what should we truly be grateful for today. And if all the other stuff fell off, how are you grateful? If all of the other stuff fell off, what is the gratitude that you hold on to that's at your core of
Right.
who you are?
Right. One of the things I like to use with people is the principle of the least sucky thing right now. Because oftentimes we can look at our, like when you're in that mindset, it can be so hard. Like you said, that you have to pull it out. But if you can just pause and go, okay, the least sucky thing that's happening right now is this. And then from there, what's the next least sucky thing? And it's almost like a bridge, you know, because sometimes you just have too much momentum going, you know?
A few people have commented on some videos lately that they have shared that they're very much on a similar journey. And the loneliness that we feel, I think I want to share with people that you never know who's going to come into your life and who's going to leave it. The
right.
relationship that you need to focus on when you're on this journey is yourself.
You know, something that I have reclaimed, or part of this reclaiming, had to do with healing generational trauma. And it took, like, the first part of the reclaim was leaving marriages, healing from, like, what was I doing jumping into marriages? I had no business doing that. And then my life exploded and everything went really well. And I built a business and like all these things. And it was amazing. But then I hit that point again. Something's missing. What's going on? And so I think it's important for us to remember that just because you reclaim doesn't mean there won't be another time when you have to reclaim again. And
Yes.
this is a journey. This is not like a one and done.
Yep. And as human beings, we're built for connection, right?
Yes.
That is something that we in this society have been almost robbed of because we're so independent and we're
Yes.
a very me-focused
Yes.
generation. Human beings can't survive at birth if you do not have another human being to hold you, feed you, comfort you. You will not survive. There's
Right.
just, it's not possible. So we are built for connection. So there's nothing wrong with you, and I'll speak directly to anyone who's listening. There's nothing wrong for wanting that connection and for craving it and for seeking that connection through others. You have to be careful with what's fueling your need for the connection.
That's right.
When I find myself on Tinder, swipe, 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 swipe. That's not a healthy connection.
No.
It's not the connection that we're seeking. But when I find myself reaching out to a girlfriend who I've got a very healthy relationship with and I feel very safe with, and I'm feeling lonely or a little depressed or just in my feels, and being able to pick up that phone and say, hey, like, I'm feeling XYZ today, and giving space for each other and providing that safe space to talk through that.
Right.
Now that's a connection that I'm okay with seeking.
Yes.
Right? We don't have to do it alone. And I think that was a big shift for everyone in 2020. 2020, when everybody started coming out on like TikTok and Instagram talking about what was really happening inside of us.
Yes. Yes.
and no longer masking it with, this is my perfect life and this is my perfect husband
Right.
and this is my perfect house. We stepped away from that and said, yeah, I've got this gorgeous life on camera, but let me spin the camera around and show you what's behind it.
That's right.
And what's behind it is a hot mess.
Yep.
We needed to see that. We needed to know that we weren't alone. And so many of us feel alone in our journey. And what I'm discovering through the amount of women and men, women and men who DM me, call me, write to me, comment on my videos, that they are going through the same thing. And we're talking not 5 or 10 people, we're talking hundreds,
Yes.
thousands of people who feel the same way. We are not alone in this journey. And I think it's showing us that there's a reclaiming going on globally, where a lot of us want to feel more in control of our life.
Yes. Yes. We're not going to just check the boxes anymore.
No,
the boxes are bullshit anyway.
They are. They don't, those boxes that were created, they fit the narrative 40 years ago.
I don't know that they did.
No?
I don't, even then, I mean, yes, we didn't have the ability to look into people's lives like we do now.
Right.
Like 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, I was sharing on, back then Facebook was like the big platform. That's where I was sharing, oversharing, as you say. That's my toxic trait as well.
Don't you love when you get a reminder from Facebook of 12 years ago, you posted this? And I'm always like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what I posted 12 years ago. Please don't tell me.
I like looking back because it's like, girl, you have grown. Like you are like, you'd be like so ashamed to post something like that now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even consider it. So even 10 years ago, people were coming forward. There was like zero engagement on those posts, or, I might get some likes, but no comments. But my messages were flooded as well because people were like, we need to see this. We need to see this. And so I agree with you that now there's a more public reclaiming that's happening. So if you're thinking about reclaiming something, you are not alone. It's not just us, the people like, with the mic. It's your neighbor. It's probably your sister. It's everyone is trying to do it.
And it's so amazing what happens when you start to open up to other people. And I found that when I was going through my separation and people would message me and I would share what was going on, these people who I thought had these perfect relationships and beautiful home lives would start just pouring their soul, like telling me what was happening, and they were considering leaving their marriage or relationship, or they were struggling with X, Y, and Z, or they are struggling with their weight. And I was shocked because half the time I'm looking at the story they're telling on their social media thinking, wow, must be nice, right? And that's the must be nice thought process is the most toxic thought process I think that exists today, because we see it sometimes, right? Like, must be nice. You have no idea what's going on behind closed doors for somebody
Everyone's
else.
fighting a battle.
Everyone is fighting a battle. And everyone's battle, and this is something I've had to learn over the years, their battle may be different than mine because maybe they haven't gone through trauma in the same way I have, right? Maybe the worst thing that ever happened to them was their dog died. And that's the worst thing that's ever happened in their life up till now. Well, that's still their most impactful moment, or that's still their most traumatic event.
Yes.
So there's no judgment as to your trauma versus my trauma, or, well, yeah, you went through this, but I went through that. No, it's everybody has validation in how they feel about their hurt and their pain and their life because it's relevant to them.
And oftentimes I think when we do that must be nice, we're denying our own experience of the trauma. Like we're not willing to yet look at what our pain is. So we're like, oh, must be nice. Like you don't get it. And we bristle. Yeah. And I did this just a couple months ago. We went to see family and my grandmother said, I forget what we were talking about. And she was like, poor you. I thought, no, she's 97. I wasn't going to say, but I'm in my head. I'm like, what the fuck, lady? Like, have you not seen what I've overcome? Like, are you kidding? Like I bristled. And then I thought, okay, wait a minute. Maybe she's right. Not like on some, not the poor me mentality, but like the, I think we can, instead of grieving properly, instead of like just being present with what's there for us, we can tend to bristle and like, I got this though. Like I can do, and I think that's part of that projection. Like, must be nice. Like I got this chip on my shoulder. I can fucking do it, you know,
Yeah.
instead of just being with it.
So how do we come out of this period of grief when you have made these big changes in your life and you feel this overwhelming sense of sadness, loneliness, feeling like you're facing the world on your own? What does that look like for you when we think about, okay, this is a moment in time, but it's a moment in time that feels really shitty, even though I know that I'm on this right path and I know that I'm doing the right things? How do we come out of that?
So I think there are two pieces to it. I think there's the mental piece, getting insight into your thought patterns and the patterns that have caused you or could cause you to go backward, to go back into what feels like safety. And I know you have a great journaling process, so I'll let you speak to that. And then we can talk a little bit about the second piece, which is the somatic healing, the in the body stuff that you have to do, otherwise it'll come back.
Journaling has become a really big thing for me, and I have like 4 journals at once because
Always.
I have a journal like in my pocketbook, I have a journal at my office, I have a journal in my bedroom, and then I have on notes in my cell phone.
Yeah.
I have this one note in my phone called "Sobriety is Hard," and it started on August 22nd of 22. So we're almost like 2 years in. And what was happening was I was feeling anxious, and I had all these emotions happening at once, especially I had sprained my ankle skating. And so I was off skates for like 6 weeks, and skating had become my only tool that I had to cope with my anxiety and my pain and my sadness about my divorce and no longer drinking alcohol. And then that got taken away real quick.
Yeah.
And I was shook. I was
Yeah.
shooketh. What am I going to do without roller skates?
Yep.
And I realized how dangerous that was, to put all of my eggs in that one basket of roller skating is my only savior, because life happens. We don't
Yes.
know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
So I've started journaling, and my journaling process is understanding the fear behind the feeling, because 99% of it, it's fear of something.
That's right.
Most recently, I had said to my therapist, I wake up every morning with a jolt of anxiety, and I don't know why, because I had that same jolt of anxiety last year when I almost went dead ass broke and had no money in my account and thought I was going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
But now we're a year later. My account looks much better. My business is booming. I'm doing a million times better in every aspect of my life. Why am I still waking up with this fear of, I didn't know it was fear.
Yeah.
Why am I still waking up with this heavy anxiety on my chest when I get up every morning? And we worked through it. And as I was journaling about it, I started to uncover these layers. And so my journaling process was really just writing down everything that was coming to my head around these thoughts that were plaguing me. And I realized that I was so scared to be financially insecure again, because that was such a horrifying feeling, to be a single mom with a baby.
It's traumatic.
It's so traumatic. It really was.
Extremely.
And I had to write down, you're safe now. You're safe.
Yep.
And I had to keep
Yep.
reminding myself, like, you're safe
Yes.
now. You're okay. You're going to be okay. And you're always going to be okay.
Hand over heart. You're
yeah.
safe is something I have to do
You're safe.
often.
You're safe now.
Yes.
And I find that helps me through a lot of those moments when I do feel that extreme anxiety.
Yeah.
If I don't have a journal right near me, or I'm driving, and just putting my hand over my heart and just getting really in tune with my body and thinking to
Yes.
myself, you are not in danger right now. Nothing is crumbling at the moment. And even if it is crumbling at the moment, what are the solutions? How do we come out of it? Because the brain can spiral, right? And send your
That's
body.
its job.
It's its
It
job.
loves to fucking spiral. It's its
Absolutely
favorite thing
spiral.
ever.
But being able to provide that comfort for myself.
For yourself. That's right.
Which EMDR, my psychotherapy, has helped tremendously with that. So for anyone who is looking for an alternative to just talk therapy, that's been my go-to.
Yeah, talk therapy absolutely has its place.
It does.
For sure. I think it needs to be, and also use these things. EMDR for some people is miraculous. I know the second piece of this moving through grief, the journaling, and this somatic piece has been a game changer for me. And it's a very simple practice, not always easy, because it requires that we sit with the heavy emotions, just the emotions, just the sensations in the body, and not make a story about it.
Interesting.
Because our mind likes to do that. As soon as we sense anything, we're like, oh, like even if I'm running a group right now, and one of the things that I'm having them do is just be present with whatever sensations are in your body. For example, if your head is tense, our minds instantly want to make a judgment about it and go, oh, well, I'm dehydrated. So of course, like I have tension. Even that little bit, we think that's like no big deal. But even that little bit of judging something, labeling it, naming it, it creates this clusterfuck spiral when it comes to the even bigger things. So for me, being able to just sit with the really heavy, like chest crushing, deep emotions and just breathe into and through it and be present with it. Some practitioners will say, what color is it? What shape is it?
Yeah.
To keep your focus there. Because right away your mind wants to go make a story and it will spin the fuck out.
Yep.
It will come up with all the reasons why. And that's when those bad patterns can kick back in, right? That's when you're like, I should call him. Like,
it's always, I should call him.
He needs to hear.
The universe is telling me that it's time to call him.
We're going to break no contact. We're going to.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Please. Like we've said before, reach out to us. Don't do that shit.
Don't
do that shit.
Yeah, I think that the process of reclaiming your life is not an easy one. And if it is easy, you're probably not doing it right.
And you know what, too? Along this path, right, we all want to experience more joy. There are going to be waves, ebbs and flows, of course. But what I found is the more I resisted really feeling the heavier emotions, the more I wasn't able to feel the joy because I had put it on such a fucking pedestal that I couldn't reach it. So the more that we hold the space for the heavier emotions and let them be no big deal, the more we can acclimate to the joy.
Wow, Melissa, that sounds like an entire episode in itself.
Probably.
I think it might be.
We'll add it to our list.
The process of reclaiming yourself is a journey. And when I remember back to when this journey started for me, although I was in the most pain I think I had ever felt, I also was the most free I had ever felt. There was a freedom that came with that pain. Mm-hmm. It was worth it. It was worth it. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Reclaim podcast. Just remember to like and subscribe because we love doing this and we'd like to continue doing it for you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.